Welcome to East Meets West, and today again we have my good friend, mentor, coach, so many different things I can call him, but no other than Dr. Dot. Dr. Dot also is one of our facilitator on the leadership program that we have collaborated with �W𝐚𝐻𝐿𝐼 Graduate University. And that's a program that we have where leaders, supervisors, manager, any person, in fact, even if you're not even in those level, that can join that program and learn at least 26 lessons on leadership. And it's different modules, and Dr. Dot, we put him to do the first module, which I believe is more important, is finding purpose. Because many of us are in position, many of us are going through life, don't know and understand our purpose. But this program is amazing. You need to get on board and get in a class with Dr. Dot and experience him. But today we're talking a little bit on leadership, as this is a leadership podcast. And our topic today is on courage. So Dr. Dot, welcome to East Meets West, and I appreciate you giving us some time, and you're a regular guest on this program because you add so much value. So many of our viewers also give some feedback, or love the way you express and explain something. And so we appreciate that you're coming back and give your thoughts about this topic here on courage. So please welcome. And is there anything you would like to add before we get started on this topic?
I just want to thank you for inviting me again, to East Meet West, and it's always a delight to be here with you, Shanti, and also to appreciate you for the great work you do, contributing to leadership development across the world. Thank you so much for having me here.
You're welcome, Dr. Dot. And so let's get into this topic here. I know that, we are pressed with time and to be able to, share some nuggets on this topic here. We're going to talk about, why courage is important for leaders. What are maybe some type of courage that you will need? And, maybe some ideas of how this is showing up in your life and what you can do differently. So, Dr. Dot, what is your opinion about courage?
Yeah, when we talk about courage, this is a timeless principle. You remember the 12 virtues of leadership that have been taught over the age. The first one, there's courage. And the way I want to look at it is that courage is not like a standalone. It's not number one in the list of virtues. Courage is like the arm, and then the other virtues sort of draw from courage. Because you have courage, you have empathy, you have humility, you have servant leadership, you have, and all the other kind of virtues. But the way I look at it is that courage is like the stem, and these other virtues are like the branches. So courage is like the trunk, because for you to serve, you need courage. To show empathy, it requires courage. To be humbled, you require courage. And more so, we're looking at what is that distinctive quality that we need in this age, in this, what we now know as the 21st century, in this postmodern or whatever kind of way that you want to describe it. Because if there is a time in the world when leaders need to be so, maybe I use the word obsessed, or be inspired to do right, it's this time, because there are a lot of things in the name of leadership that's flying around. But one needs to be able to set the right reference point. And for that to happen, it requires a lot of courage. And courage, more so, we live in a world also where the reality is there is so much to be scared of. I was reading a story about a young man who committed suicide in the United Kingdom, having interaction with ChatGPT. So look at the whole uncertainty about the world of AI, and all this kind of thing. There's so much to be scared of. And in a situation where there's so much fear, one needs courage. Now, courage, maybe that puts me in a position where I want to really describe what I mean by courage. Courage is not when a leader has no sense of fear. Courage is being able to act even in the midst of fear. Because you will never get to a point where you won't have things to be uncertain about, where you will not find yourself in positions of vulnerability. But in the midst of being vulnerable, in the midst of being scared, in the midst of a lot of options that might be facing you, challenges, you still want to be able to act. So courage for me is a willingness. I don't want to call it ability. It's a willingness to be adventurous. It's the willingness to be able to take the risk, because leadership is about decision making. And psychologists say that a normal human being takes about 7,000 decisions maybe in a day, about 7,000. Even to wake up in the morning is a decision. So this courage I'm talking about is the one that is strong enough to inspire you to look beyond challenges and still being desirous of taking the right decisions. And then courage also, in a world where we have a lot of identity dysphoria, where we have a lot of identity crisis, where a lot of people are, sort of, rather than being inspired by other successes, they're intimidated by it, where people throw their achievements in people's faces and all of that. We need the courage to stay true to our identity. We need the courage to stay committed to being authentic. It requires courage to be authentic in a world where everybody wants to define you, where we are under pressure to make an impression. So that courage is needed, and it's really an internal state. It's an emotional state, because we've had a lot of teachings on emotional intelligence and all those kind of things, but a lot of these things are still more in a kind of a nominal sort of talk level. We've not seen enough of what we've learned being actioned. And what is missing is what I believe is this courage. What if I step out there and I fail? Courage says, what if you step out and you don't fail? So courage is not that there is no possibility of failure, but you knowing that failure is not fatal. Failure is just another opportunity to give it another push. So that's what I mean by courage. Yeah.
Yeah, I am thinking, sometimes people might think that courage is like aggression, and courage is about loud. Like, you need to be
I
loud.
gotcha.
You need to
Yeah.
dominate. You need to, show that you're this macho person and all of that. And sometimes courage as leaders is really understanding that making certain decisions too when it might not be might not be popular, or it might not
Absolutely.
make you popular, that you
Yeah.
have the courage to actually do that. And
Yeah.
when you think of in business wise or in any aspect of an organization, how do you act with integrity when shortcuts maybe are more profitable? Like
Absolutely.
those kind of hard decisions sometimes, as somebody who stands, whether you're leading a team or not, might be just leading yourself here, that do you have the courage to make the decision in that moment there, or are you running from making those decisions? And maybe it's have a lot to do with your thinking. Sometimes I think that we are so wired that, and it because our experience that we might have gone through in life, and we are at this stage because you've experienced so many bad things, or people who are dishonest, or people who would have done something, and now you're always wondering, what if I do this here, and there's this fear, right? And so I recall somebody was saying something about courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. And you know, fear, being able to be courageous is not that you're not gonna be not afraid, if I may put it
Exactly.
that way. There are gonna
Yeah.
always be some amount of fear, but how do you choose to overcome it? And to be able to step in and do what is needed in that moment there, whatever it may cost.
Yeah, in
That's what
fact, to be
something.
fearless, in fact, to be fearless is actually negative. That is what brings aggression. But fear reminds you of your humanity. Fear reminds you of, for example, the need that you don't have to go it alone. You know, the way I always define leadership. When you say leadership, you are not talking about a person. You're talking about a team. You're talking about a community. Leadership is leaders on a ship headed in the same direction. So if you see somebody who is fearless, that's worrisome. That you come to a point in your life where you're not reminded of your limitation. That might not work well for leadership. That might be where aggression comes in. So, because if you look at maybe the animal kingdom, studies have shown that the reason the lion is very aggressive is because of fear. It's because of fear. Yeah, the reason the lion is very aggressive is because of fear. So if you see someone who is, and the way that fear comes is to be able to dominate others, so there's a kind of a very, very positive kind of fear, fear that makes you want to learn. Fear, because the leader that's going to function in this 21st century will be the one that is willing to accept that he doesn't know it all. And that takes courage to accept. One phrase that I normally use from the book, The Culture Shock by Alvin Toffler, which everybody knows about. Illiterate of the future is not those that can't read or write, it's those that can learn, unlearn, and relearn. It takes a lot of courage to take those kind of very popular quotes and make it a lifestyle. So to say, I don't know, it takes courage, especially when you are being respected as a voice. It takes a lot of courage to be humble. It takes a lot of courage to show empathy. It takes a lot of courage to play the second fiddle. When you know that concerning this particular issue on ground, there's somebody that knows it better than me, even if I am the boss. It takes courage to take a step backwards. And one of the things that is required in this age is, maybe what you and I would have learned when we were at BGU as students is that practice of reflection. It takes courage to take a second look at something you've seen before. Because that's what I understand reflection to be. It takes a lot of courage, now that a lot of us are becoming a voice that is respected and all those kind of things, but it takes courage to take another look. Maybe there's something more to what we have gotten used to. So reflection requires courage. That maybe I need to take another look at it again and enjoy a bit of sense of wonder. Because Shanti, you know what? We live in a world now that is wrapped in mystery. And when things get mysterious, we have a huge zone of the unknown. And we need to accept that. It is courage to say, I don't know. Then humility kicks in to say, I want to know. I always tell people, the world is not a problem to be solved. The world is a mystery to be admired, to be observed, understood, so that we know how to interact with it. Human beings are not problems. So a lot of us leaders, we see ourselves as problem solvers. So we're always nosy for problems because problems makes us relevant. But I am changing that no, the world is not a problem to be solved. The world is a mystery to be admired. Human beings are mystery to be admired. Parenting is about you seeing your kids as mystery to be admired. leadership in the office space, in the workplace, is seeing your team members as various dimensions of mystery. And that requires a lot of courage to say, I want to relearn. As difficult as relearning is, can I read a book the second time and read it as if I've never seen it again? Can I turn and become like and not lose my sense of wonder? Because we can really become experts and we get into the rut. So to take these steps backwards, it requires a lot of courage. So let's accept our vulnerabilities. Let's recognize our need to know. Let's know that there is still so much more about leadership. I remember we were speaking in Ghana, when we were together in Ghana, that we're doing the graduation of our friend's institute. I've forgotten the name of the school now. That's Kofi. And I remember speaking at that event, I said, billions of dollars have been spent on leadership development. And we still have a consensus of opinion in the world that the problem with the world is that of leadership. So it's not about training. It's about what we do with the training. Many times we advertise our training and we don't give space for the trained to speak up. And it's not just saying a word of testimonial, but they act out what they've learned. That requires courage. Many things we agree with that we've not actioned, we've not practiced, that we just basically do that which is easy. It's because courage is missing. Or we've reduced courage to a kind of a leadership theory that we just learn, we can even write papers about it, but it's become like a lifestyle. I am learning courage. I am seeing the need for me to be more courageous in things, to take hard decisions, very hard, very tough decisions that might not be popular, like you said. When everybody says we're going this way, and I see that this way we're headed, it might not really be right. Even if this is not popular, and I know it's right, I'm still going to do it regardless. I want to be willing to be alone in my world if I know it's right. And honestly, let me put a caveat. If I discover that the decision I've made is wrong, courage reminds me to come back and say I was wrong. Courage gives you peace. It gives you so much peace. And that peace of mind, that presence of mind, that sanity is so much required in the age of so much noise, of social media, of, when everybody's, kind of have a platform to be able to speak up. So courage is needed today to find that little space for being authentic. That's a long one, I'm sorry.
I'm just thinking in so many aspects here that, and in my head, I'm thinking courage, that's, am I so courageous to have the difficult conversations too? Many of us don't want to, maybe your team members, you need to give them a feedback on something difficult. Maybe they're on their performance. Maybe there is a conflict going on. And you don't want to have those difficult conversations. You avoid it. And I'll give you something as simple as this. For me, I think it's simple. Maybe it's not simple for others. So sometimes you're reaching out to organizations, leaders, the owners for businesses, or the head of HR, or somebody who can make decisions. And you're asking them to come, and send your team to be trained. I know there's some other dynamics with that, but I know you have the yes or no in you to say this, but yet this aspect, and I'm wondering, is this aspect of courage that why won't you respond to someone? Why you're not okay in having a difficult conversation to say, no, I can't do this right now. And, I'm gonna, when we're ready, or check back with me on this date or on the next time, but respond. Like simple aspect of that in responding to someone's message or their phone call, but I don't know. For me, I think that is kind of a little bit of lack of courage in
Yeah.
being able to say no. So to avoid this kind of awkward kind of relationship now, if I say no, maybe whatever you're thinking gonna happen, or do you just be comfortable in actually having that conversation? And so
Yeah, and I
I
think,
don't know.
courage, yeah, again, courage can be infectious. If you notice that someone is struggling with being courageous, you can offer your own kind of courage to make that person comfortable enough to be courageous. Because as for somebody who functions in your kind of position as a trainer, you have to understand that when I approach an organization that I want to train you, you're already positioning yourself as somebody, even unintentional. You're already positioning yourself as somebody who knows what you don't know, who have something to offer them, who want to maybe fill a gap in their organization. So you're already coming as an expert. You're
Yep.
already coming as somebody who is resourceful, somebody who is in possession of what they need. So sometimes if you are not also courageous, you will be offering a very good product but badly packaged.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
So
why I
when
say
you
there
play
are
that kind
plenty
of
of things at play here where that is concerned. But the aspect of you making a decision to be okay to say no, right? So even if whatever might play down there with whoever's talking or contacting you, to be okay. You know what? I don't have anything against this person or my thoughts. Ignoring or avoiding the conversation because it is a bit, I don't know, awkward for you, or you don't want to let the person down or something
yeah.
along that line. I'm saying, where's your courage in actually just having that conversation? Might be
The
just a
point
quick
I'm
message.
yeah. The point I'm making is I can only control my own kind of courage. I can't control how others, decide or not decide to be courageous. But what I'm also saying is that I can be generous with my own kind of courage. Because it takes a lot of, people being comfortable in their skin to be courageous.
Yep.
Because one issue that all leaders face that is often masked is that of insecurity. Most leaders are easily threatened by others. They are easily threatened. People are only comfortable where they are the biggest dude in the room. People are not human beings except they had the requisite training and they have received it, they've been properly given the orientation and they've bought into it. Human beings, the greatest fear of humans is that of insecurity. People easily feel threatened by others. They want to be the big fish in the pond. So if I understand that, I am willing to also be a small fish and make the guy feel he's a big fish so that we can have a relationship. And that's what I mean by I need to be generous with my own kind of courage. And don't because sometimes your own courage can intimidate others.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you need to be aware of that. So the reason the other guy is not willing to say, okay, I'll call you back. Okay, I know. Even the no, the inability to say no is out of insecurity. Oh, I don't want to hurt that person. If you're going to do things right all the time, you will hurt people. And when people are hurt, the danger is that sometimes you don't even know you've hurt someone because the person is not even willing to tell you. But my courage
Exactly.
tells
You're
me,
scared.
yeah, my courage tells me I might hurt people. So I'm always on the lookout, and ask the right questions. I hope this comes across well. And that's why courage, says to me, be willing to play the second fiddle, be the loser, for the greater good, be willing to lose for the greater good. Because if it's for the greater good, if I lose point A, maybe it gives us platform to move to point B where I can make my point clearer.
Yeah.
Easier said than done. Dr. Dot that is saying this, it's not that I'm an expert in this thing, but courage is making me put my voice out there so that I can also be said, somebody can confirm and say, that's what you said on, on East Meets West, and that's not what you're doing right now. So it's courage that's making me say this, because I'm also talking to myself that
Yep.
this is who I need to be in this age and time. Yeah.
I thought of this, an organization, we had this discussion, it's a large organization, and they're looking for more leadership. They want managers to step into a different role, or people, I should say, to step into a different role to become supervisors, manager. And they're like, we're having such a hard time getting people to move. They're just comfortable, but I do believe it's fair. The fear of if I become a supervisor, now I'm responsible for all these people. I don't want to be responsible for anybody. Let me only be responsible for my performance and what I can
Absolutely.
do. And so many organizations are not having courageous people who are stepping up and say, you know what, I may not know well how to lead in this area, but I'm willing to learn. And I think
Yeah,
that's what we started off when you said that, if you don't know, but you're willing to learn. And I
absolutely.
find everyone, and not everyone, but a lot of people are just pretty much in there where they're comfortable. So
Yeah.
courage means that I am going to be uncomfortable. I will have to get into a different field. I might have to do some different things. And I'm not comfortable doing that. I'm just okay here. Leave me
Yeah.
here. I'm
Yeah.
okay. And so
Yeah.
I'm thinking along that line too of how, as individuals too, how are you showing up courageous in whatever
You,
role
you
that
know,
you're in?
Yeah, the real point I want our listeners to go away with here is not that I, as Dr. Dot or maybe Dr. Shanti, just want to be courageous. Can we can we create an atmosphere where those in our space, our team members, can also find a way to be courageous? Can we make it, now that we're learning this, can we make it a culture in the workplace, that this workplace allows people to be courageous? Because courage requires the right environment. It requires there are many workplace environments that negatively, that sort of inhibits people from being courageous. You know, and it's and if we create such an environment, it doesn't come without its own challenges. But I'd rather work with a group of strong people rather than me being the only strong man in the, maybe the only strong person, in the team. So it's very important that we try and create an atmosphere where we proliferate, where we make courage easy, make it easy for people to be courageous. And that would mean, I remember a time I did a training on how to fail, the value of failure. The reason a lot of people are scared is the fear of failure. The day a leader or an aspiring leader or somebody who is an emerging leader or any kind of human at all, the day you understand what failure is, you have some spring in your steps. So that the moment, because I always tell the story of fear is, somebody like Peter in the Bible, who is a fisherman, and Peter fell into the river, right? And I was scared. Fear makes you forget what you are good at. And imagine somebody who is a fisherman falling into the river and is crying. If you can walk on water, at least you can swim. So fear makes you forget what you're very good at. But the moment you know that if I can't walk on water like Jesus, at least I can at least go back to my area of strength and swim. But the guy forgot everything. And he said, I'm drowning. How can a fisherman be saying I'm drowning? So That's what fear does. Fear just makes you lose sense of your total personality. Leaders need to know not the removal of fear, but understanding what fear is. Fear incapacitates. It makes, because a bad decision is better than a no decision. Because in a bad decision, you learn.
Exactly.
Life offers humans many opportunities. We often say failure is not fatal. We don't believe it. We don't believe it. Failure is not fatal. It's not fatal. I know there are some, occupations that a little failure can be very fatal, maybe like an airline pilot and all those kind of things, maybe a medical doctor. But it's not, if you look at the percentage of people involved in those and if you look at the rate of failure in those areas too, it's rare. It's rare. So when you really look at the world, there's really nothing to be afraid of. Because one thing we shouldn't be afraid of is failure. It's failure, because failure offers another opportunity for us to do better. So tying that to courage, courage is what will make us not eliminate failure, but manage failure, understand what failure is. Because courage will push you, into that place where you become adventurous. Courage is not when you are really in charge of outcomes. Courage is when you abandon yourself to a process over which you don't have a control. When you don't have a control, I can only put a seed in the ground. I can't control how the seed grows. So I'm willing to abandon myself to that kind of process where I don't have absolute control. That takes courage, because normal human being wants to be in charge. They want to be able to see the end, from the beginning from the end, and really be in control. But it doesn't happen all the time. So it takes courage to be limited. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. It takes a lot of courage for you not to be in full charge. You are not in charge of the final outcome of the process that you are on. So that brings a lot of other streams, into it. So that by the time it's a bravo time, it's, each person can actually, fist bump and say, yeah, we did it, not I did it. So it's courage is needed in this day and time, because a lot of things are so much uncertainty around us, and uncertainty can actually cripple. So it's courage that will make us bear with the pressure of the uncertainties. And I remember a leader I respect so much was asked a question, and this is the guy who always have an answer for everything. He was asked a question, and the guy said, I don't know. Wow. I learned more from his I don't know, because that just frees me to say, oh, I don't have to know everything. Oh my goodness, that is so good. So I'm free to say I don't know. It's a relief, exactly. So, because most times we leaders are under pressure to be able to give an answer for everything, but the guy said, oh, I don't know. And it was so liberating. Yeah.
Yeah, as you were speaking, the aspect of fear, I'm thinking that many times we say, what if I fail? What if, this doesn't go this way? What if the person get mad? What if? And, think back, what if it actually worked? What if,
Absolutely.
this turned into the best relationship there is? What if? How about turning the fear of what if in a negative into what if in a positive, right? And stepping into something different. And I honestly believe, for this past month or so, I kept going back into my brain. Oh, Shanti, your thoughts, how is that affecting this decision right now? Or what you're about to say or think about this person? How is your thought? Where are you at right now? You're thinking. And, as I catch myself, okay, I want to think the best of this person. I want to believe in this. And the whole idea here is that what you thinking, they say what you think about, you bring about. And so if you keep thinking that, something can't work, or this fear of, if I step in, this is gonna happen, because you keep thinking that's exactly what's gonna happen, and you're manifesting those things. What if I can think on a different level here? Reprogram my mind. But before we close out today, I know we're up in our half hour. I want
Yeah.
to throw this out here to hear your thoughts. We were talking about creating an environment of where people are okay to fail, because many times why people are scared, because when they've done something, they might have been blasted by their superiors, and so now they're scared to step out. If I go do this thing here, I'm gonna be scolded or reprimanded, and if it doesn't work, or I didn't do something right or whatever. So there's courage to explore and to take different risk and all of that. Many organizations are not seeing that, because maybe we have enable that kind of culture in our environment. And then you
Yeah.
have leaders who come from a different angle and say, well, Shanti, if I allow the people them to keep making mistakes that and costing me, then how do I balance that? So that they understand their decision, but yet it doesn't cost me for them to learn. I
Yeah.
hope you understand it from both angle here. And just to speak into that, so that, others who are
My
listening
my
think it
thought on
through.
that for organizations is that we assume our culture. We don't intentionally build it. We assume it. And we often, when I teach organizational culture, I say there are three levels of culture: the assumed culture, the real culture, and the desired culture. The assumed, the real, and the desired. The assumed is what everybody assumed that this is it. The real, I often ask, which one do you think should be the correct one here? The real culture is what exists. The desired is what the organization, maybe they've put on the wall as a vision statement, as a mission statement, as all of that. We are not, because most of your staff in your organization, that's not the first place they're going to work. So they bring the culture from the previous organization into your own organization. You don't stop them at the door and say, hey, this is who we are. So we talk a lot about onboarding, orientation. We are not yet too in, I am a culture creating, I'm obsessed with culture creation. So I want to stop you at the door. This is who we are. And it's a challenge. That you've said it doesn't mean they agree. For people to buy into your culture, it takes time. They either stay on the level of the assumed culture, or they just flow along with the real culture. The desired always become elusive. But it takes a bit of intentionality to say that, hey, here we rebuke. If you don't meet the deadline, you are going to get a memo. So the day you get the memo, there's no surprise. So every organization should be able to have that culture of, this is how we get things done here. This is the lead to influence way, right? This is like in my organization, we call it Patrice. There is a Patrice way. It's different from lead to influence way. So it must be talked about. So we must make it an anthem. I call it a VBO, a value-based organization. So we have our language, we have our ways of doing things, we have our tradition. So that you are rebuked, it's not a surprise. You know that, in fact, you will have rebuked yourself before you are rebuked. People forget. That's why good leaders, they repeat. They sound like a cracked record, the way we say it. It takes courage to keep repeating it, keep repeating it, keep repeating it, keep repeating it, keep repeating it. It takes courage. So culture building, culture creation requires a high degree of intentionality. And I must say this, the lead, the person leading the team must now grow also to a level where The culture is no longer, it's not more of what we say, but what you model. They see it in you. I was driving to work, this morning. Something happened on the road. One of my staff who rides a bike, right? We nearly collided, with each other, and the guy lashed out. He didn't know it was me. The guy lashed out. And when he saw that it was me, he was, but I continued. But I discovered that by traffic rule, I was at fault. And I said to myself in the car, when Monday gets back to the office, I'm going to call him and apologize to him because it was my fault. He had the right of way. But I'm also going to tell him, hey, you don't lash out in traffic. You need to have some emotional balance. You lashed out. What if it wasn't me? We used to have the kind of remorse, but I need to first of all apologize because I was at fault. I should give traffic. In Nigeria, you give traffic to the one on the left. Maybe yours is on the right. So those are the kind of things I need to model it. I must be able to tell him sorry that I didn't drive correctly there. So culture is not something you talk about. It can start with talking, but it must now be embodied. I always tell people, I never come late for meetings. I say it to put pressure on me to continue, right? If I'm coming for a meeting and I'm running late because of traffic, I call so that they can also see that. So it's not that don't come late. No. Don't come late might be the beginning, but they need to see that that guy doesn't come late. He's always on time. Yeah, he's always on time. He never miss deadlines. So we need to be very, very intentional. A lot of people, when they are rebuked, when they are given a memo, when they're even fired, they're surprised because they never know. You didn't say enough. So staff policy must not just be a paper. It must also, and those who have stayed long in the organization too, should model it. This is how it's done here. This is how it's done here. Yeah. So that's what I would say about that. A lot of people, sincerely don't know that this is the way the organization runs. So they can be courageous. They always tepid in whatever they do. Oh, I don't know what I might do. That might just, hit the wrong chord here. And so people need to know there must be general awareness, good, well-intentioned, well-structured onboarding, and continuous orientation. That's what I was speaking to that. That's a very good point that you raised, Shanti.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dot. And as I said, it's always, for me, an enlightening thing. I always learn something from Dr. Dot when we talk, whether we're on the phone, have a normal conversation on something, I get to learn something from him. And that's why I keep inviting him to this program so that you could also get to learn from him. And do share any question that you may have for Dr. Dot or myself, and we both would love to answer in our opinion about whatever it is you're asking. We also ask you to share this program with anyone that you think need to hear the things that we spoke about on Courage here. And maybe share also something that you will step in to start doing from now on, where you're improving in your courage and start diminishing the fear that is holding you back. And understanding too that it's okay to be afraid. I like how I think Joyce Meyer said it, do it afraid. Right? So even whatever it might be, still go do it even if you're afraid. So Dr. Dot, thank you so much for being part of 𝐉𝐨𝐡𝐧, and you have a wonderful day. And to our viewers too, thank you for looking at this video, our message out here, and do share it with your audience too. Take care.
Bye.